fails to see this will be driven around and away by the slightest breath of air. Without hope for rescue, he will always be striving to find a firm hold somewhere that, however, will never be offered unless he searches for, and finds, the fundamental truth. Billions of humans look up to the stars in the sky, however, without any results or realizations. Astronomers, however, while looking up to the sky, discover new worlds and write books about it. But what they see and recognize, other people cannot see or recognize, even if they can look up. Despite their seeing eyes, they are blind. In a similar way, this is the case with the normal and the spiritual human. The human, who truly lives according to creation's laws, sees everywhere and recognizes what is creative, in every life form, in everything, in every thought and act, in every human, in all of nature's work and also in all conceivable circumstances. But the normal, unspiritual human, who is harmed by religions or other unreal teachings, may not see or hear, or recognize even one iota of truth. His life is unspiritual, all the more pressed into human material ways. Thereby he is blind, deaf and ignorant. The human who adheres to creation's laws is the most blessed and most fearless being. His will is insurmountable, his dedication immeasurable and endless, and his wisdom and love are constant and perfect, not capricious and full of doubts like it is the case with those who are dependent from religions or generally those who are led astray in some way. His mind resembles the wide, endless sea and does not let itself come out of its rest. He does not tremble with fear. Therefore, the human may unfold his spiritual mind that is not anymore reached by any degenerated negative force, the mind which gives no shelter to negatively degenerated thoughts and supersedes all positively degenerated thoughts and actions. Only a balanced mind that is rooted in what is creative, in creative service, in creative wisdom, its knowledge, its love and joy that are more real than all material walls around and more real than the human environment is valuable in serving the spirit's development. Therefore the human being shall be spiritually great and constructive at all times. The spirit, the source of all endless, creative development, is itself the human's innermost being. The human outer being is full of limitations, because it is not itself, but only its wrap, its material body, a limitation, a misleading matter, the source of toil and pain, and it is limited regarding cognition and will, willingness to make sacrifices, freedom, love and luck. If the human looks at his fellowman in an external, material way only, he sees nothing other than just exactly the form and figure, the material of this special person. If he looks at him with the spiritual eyes of cognition and knows that this universally all-testifying consciousness in himself is also in all the other ones, albeit unknown to them, then the manner of how he sees his fellow men changes completely. He then does not simply see a man anymore, a woman, a girl or a child, but he sees the fellow man as a bearer of a creative spirit that knows about itself, about its existence, and wants to reveal itself through anybody if there would only be offered an opportunity. He who knows the truth sees his fellow man from this knowledge and recognition, because he sees in him what is creative. At least he now knows more than he knew before he recognized the truth. This is the proof then that ignorance is nothing that cannot be changed for all times. If the human is willing to accept the truth, he can free himself from all ignorance. The human can free himself from everything, and everything can be taken from him, except the creative consciousness, the spirit, the existence within his interior, this purely spiritual realm within him. He may be robbed from all of his possessions and may be driven away from his home, but nobody may drive him away from his spiritual realm within his interior. Thus, the human should be constantly aware of what is creative, without which he would not be able to draw a single breath, could grasp no thought, could not realize, see, hear or experience. Therefore, the great sages of all times say, the creative spirit is nearer to the human than his own breath. The human may not escape from this highest consciousness, for sooner or later, he surrenders to this creative reality, because it is the life of his life, the spirit of his spirit, the consciousness of his consciousness, the light of his light, the central thought force of all life, the existence that projects all human thinking by far, against which all power of the human material intellectual thinking sinks into absolute insignificance. The spirit itself is able to live without the light of the physical eyes in the same way that it may live without hearing, arms, legs, or even without the exterior consciousness, exterior understanding. However, there is always something present that enables him to keep on living, namely his own creative force. This awareness of oneself, this all-observing and all-registering spiritual consciousness within the human, that looks at his thoughts and motions and that stands behind all of his thinking, that tells him whether he is knowing or ignorant, this is what is called creative, the spiritual consciousness. To always think again and again about the fact that the spirit is omnipotent, always present, all-knowing, and, beyond this, endless luck, endless beauty, endless value, actually the value of all things, lets the word creation become absolutely important for the human and brings forth evolution-related changes within him. As often as the words spirit and creation are impressed upon him, there occur within him psychological changes of the greatest importance. His feelings and all of his senses change. The clearer his spiritual intelligence becomes through it, the more his personality gains power, and the more blessed will be his life. A wise one full of spirit consciousness sees what will happen in the most distant future, perhaps even billions of years later, and he has the life forms and humankind's entire past before his eyes. Thus, the greatest knowledge is given unto him. Yet, how is this possible? Such a human has the necessary requirements within his interior, in the spirit. As the light may be perceived through the closed eyelids, as lies within every human creative presence the entire spiritual realm, however, it is visible only to those who are actually able to look inward through their inner eye. It can only be useful to those who offer all requirements. Every human bears within him the entire kingdom of spirit, but it is covered and beaten with ignorance, errors, imperfection, evil, mistakes and restrictions of all sorts, which have to be changed into their opposites through the recognition and acceptance of truth. The human must resolve and open all evils by developing abilities that are opposed to everything that is degenerated and which lead to a neutral balance. The way of experiencing the spirit will be accelerated through the unfolding of conscious searching and the gathering of true knowledge, and this unfolding leads to the true and all-encompassing, cosmic wisdom and love, based on the cognition that creation is present within everything. The human is one with everything within creation, in truth, wisdom and love, in the kingdom of the spirit, the truth and wisdom, that the human is separated through space and time and the body from each other. This, however, may be overcome through the internal experience. Wisdom and love combined, knowledge and truth combined, the spirit's wisdom and love led through experience to unity and creation itself, to universal joy, power and perfection. Since the human does not know what is of creation and is led astray, namely by spirit-enslaving religions, he makes a great many mistakes, searches for the true treasures in the wrong places and, thereby, violates all nature-related and creative order and all rules of laws. As precisely as he will observe the human laws of the human society, he still will constantly offend against all laws and rules and order of what is creative in the universe, and will let himself be captured in human material troubles, sorrows and problems, in fright, false teachings, deceptions and failings, in misfortune, spiritual ignorance and spiritual enslavement and restrictions. Exactly what is of greatest value will be made unobtainable by unreal religions and human ignorance. To the human, this ignorance and the misleading religions disguise that which is the source of all valuable things, the life of his life and the light of all intelligence, the spirit and the creation. The human shall accept the entire realm of his daily life and his experiences as creative. He shall see himself everywhere in space, in the times and in all things. He himself shall be everything and shall evoke all that is creative in everything, and, in this way, shall bring it to recognition and experience. For, In everything is the creation, and everything is enlivened through its spirit, through which everything is one in everything. However, the question remains how the human may identify himself with everything when he does not know the spirit's path. Generally, he identifies himself with his body. But what will happen when he tries to enter into the truth and aligns himself in his interior with the creative being and the spiritual reality? Involuntarily the entire world dissolves in this real reality, the spiritual truth. The one and only principle of what is creative spiritual rules everywhere. But how shall the human identify himself with everything? The human shall see himself for just what he really is. Generally he identifies himself with his body. He cares for it like it were a gem, he nurtures it and takes trouble for it until self-sacrifice. He surrounds it with pride, junk and a stupid delusion, while he lets his spirit become stunted. However, a little bit of pain makes him angry, sullen and uncomfortable against other ones, or he even starts complaining and crying, has self-pity and robs himself of his life. He surrounds his body with some nondescript halo and with vanity, fear, sorrow, pride and problems. More and more often, everything revolves around his body only. Often he extends his body identity towards his material possessions, or he gets upset if some fellow man involuntarily touches it. Yet, what will a human do about it when he has recognized the spiritual truth? He will identify himself with all things and all the world's life forms and the universes. A human full of creative spiritual wisdom, full of knowledge, truth, love and cognition, knows that from the truth everything originates and will originate for all eternity. Therefore, he identifies himself with each and everything. In his spiritual consciousness, he will always be in his innermost part one with each and everything. In his interior, in his spiritual consciousness, he will identify himself with everything in the universe, in the same manner that the other one, who thinks materialistically, identifies himself with his body, with his money, his possessions, his confused speaking and teaching, and with the sound of his voice. But when the human identifies himself with everything in the universe, no hate and no greed may dwell within him anymore, because he makes no more selfish differences. He has just become one with the essence in everything. Other people may claim something as their exclusive property, but he who thinks spiritually identifies it with the truth within and, therefore, owns everything internally. All fright has left him, while he identifies himself with the truth. This truth of creation and of the spirit with which he is one, even directs his enemy's hand that will rise against him, in such a way that it falls back to the enemy himself. The spiritual one is protected and sheltered, and the whole nature is well disposed toward him, and yes, even his enemies have to serve him in the end. With their attacks, they cause the spiritual within him to unfold to even greater strength and power and to overcome all that is evil, vile and degenerated. Ultimately, the enemies only contribute to the recognition of the truth and growth of those who think spiritually. They wish evil, troubles and bad things to those who think spiritually. They are of the opinion that they could destroy them through critique, know-it-all manner, lies and defamation, through complaints and false teachings, through condemning and making a fool of him. However, they only cause damage to themselves, because their acting gives testimony of intellectual foolishness and ignorance, from which he who thinks spiritually learns even more and becomes even greater and more powerful in his spirit and consciousness. Are such truths perhaps suggestions? To claim this would be a delusion, because it is false. It deals here with absolute truths. Generally, the lives of those who are thinking falsely, who are led astray and are depending upon religions, are full of evil suggestions, full of imaginary concepts, false teachings and delusional assumptions. The only possibility and the only means to overcome those damages is to fundamentally recognize the truths which abolish the human figments, to adhere to them and to let rule the highest creative spiritual forces. All unreal suggestions and human imaginations will be corrected by stating, I, the human, am a part of creation that, as a fragment, as spirit enlivens me. Yet the knowledge that everything is imaginations and delusions, except the creative spiritual force, truth and reality, this knowledge doesn't diminish the eagerness that the human unfolds in his life at all, but it will drive him up into unimagined heights.